We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies.
Welcome back to Deal Junkies. We are here. Dane, Trevor, Mike. Gabe's not here.
And Dane is here.
Yeah.
Can I tell you about Gabe almost crashing our boat first? Since he's going to listen to this. And
I actually haven't heard about this either. Okay. So yeah.
Did he put a hole on it running into the dock?
No,
like
this was almost way worse. This was almost so much worse. Okay. So we go out.
That was the dock's fault.
Dude, we go out on Memorial Day weekend,
yeah.
And there's more people out there. It's a nice day. Me, Gabe, Brandon, and Jan. And so Gabe, he's driven the boat lots of times last year, I think, right? Yeah, he's docked it and pulled it all out.
Yeah.
So we're pulling it out, and I don't know what happens. He doesn't hit enough power on it, and we start drifting into all of the other boats in like slow motion. And like he can't correct it or get it out, and we're just coming in, and me and Brandon jump off to the side of the boat and have to like push off these boats, and he gives it more gas, and then we're going more into these other boats, and all their props are sticking out. And like, dude, there's 30 people on the dock, and this is happening in slow motion. We can't do anything, and we're like barely reaching over and getting it, and we would have smashed into one of them, but we had the buoy on the side of it that saved us on one, and they were kicking off. So I pushed off of like 5 or 6 boats on this thing. Dude, that we were like inches away of just slamming into their props, and just does get damaged pretty easy.
Yeah,
I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, props.
Yeah, because as we finally get out, so there's 30 people standing here just watching this all happen. I don't know if they got on video, but maybe because it happened so slow, and they're just like, these idiots over here.
That's so
and
funny.
Dude, it was the most exciting part about boating though. It was thrilling.
That coffee almost went through my nose.
So Gabe was after. He's like, "Dang, we almost did like 50 to 100,000 in damage to all those things. That would have sucked."
You had to do a deal just to pay for that.
Yeah, and then
so funny.
Brandon goes to park it on the way in, and we do the same exact thing. And Brandon drives lots of boats, and he did it easy last time. And we come in, and we have to push off all these boats, and we're like sideways in here. I'm like,
I would like to clarify the time too when I did do some pretty hefty damage to the boat. I didn't have anybody else on the boat who like had ever been boating. And so that is a major disadvantage when you're trying to pull into the dock and you're like guiding people to where to put the buoys and like what their job is. Because I'm so used to going out on the boat with people who have like
know what they're doing,
been out on a boat,
and
at least like, hey, if I'm about to run into another boat, like
don't
very slowly, just like put your hand out. Like you can just, you don't have to. Yeah. And so I'm like watching where we're going and trying to guide people, and then it wasn't happening. And
dude,
I did hit the
so you know how you pull through the dock really slow at the end and you have to drive all the way out? Gabe is just dead silent after for a minute, and I was just
trying to recalibrate.
Yeah, he was like, holy shit. I think he was like, oh fuck, that was close. I don't know. Oh, sorry, I can't swear. But anyway,
it was a lot. It was just a lot,
dude. But I was just dying laughing because I was like, that was insane. And it was a great time though. I had a lot of fun.
It was better for you than
the
us
things
leaving
that excite you.
All right, what do we got for today?
Oh, so Dane wants to talk to you about condos and townhomes.
Ooh.
Where to build, when to build, why to build, why not to build.
I have a lot of
because
questions
we're looking at doing some of these projects right now
that I want to hear your feedback on.
Sweet.
It's been a long time coming, is what I would say. I'm serious because we've had so many land deals, especially since the good old HB 2001.
Yeah.
And Portland was the first to go in, had to be, and say, hey, this is what we're doing with HB 2001. We're going to, for the listeners, that's the bill, we've talked about it before, that essentially makes it so that on a lot that's zoned single family or like just residential for one house, you can now put multiple. And so depending on how big the lot is, it changes the zoning code essentially to allow for a whole lot more flexibility.
Expands it.
The
national headline was Oregon abolishes single-family zoning, which is not true. It's not true. Single-family zoning still exists.
Real? No,
that's just interpretation.
Yeah.
So it's still, you can still choose. So it's an option.
Yeah.
You can choose to build one home.
Yeah.
Years ago, we started adding ADUs because it's single-family zoning and you can't build 2 homes, so you have an ADU.
Yeah.
So now you just have more options to do 2 ADUs, duplexes, triplexes, and quads, and then cottages if you have a large
Townhomes.
enough. Yeah. So like in Portland, you can do up to 16 cottages on one lot. So that's kind of the max density. The reality is you need about an acre to do that. So that would be 8 single family lots.
Yeah.
Or you can take 8 single family lots and do 4 units and turn it into 32 instead of 16.
That would be
so that's
8
like the
single
dense
family lots in Portland.
Yeah, so
'cause they're just
4
tighter. Yeah.
Yeah, so 5,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So 40,000 acre, 5,000, so 8 lots creates an acre. You can do 16 on smaller than that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it is you're creating housing options. So this is how we used to develop real estate, was at a higher level of density to create housing options, which gave you income options for people with different leveling incomes.
Yeah.
And then we changed our zoning code to break multifamily away from single family.
Yeah.
And so from the 70s on, when zoning codes were getting created, like Portland zoning code started in 1979, now you homogenize areas. So you have single family here, you have multifamily there, you have commercial there, and then you have different densities of residential as buffers in between residential, single family, and commercial.
So the further out you go, the thinner it gets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what House Bill 2001 in Oregon did, and Washington's passing one right now, Minneapolis has passed one, which is just give you more options in single family homes, so developers can then choose to provide unit type to different types of incomes.
Can we talk about these specific lots or just size?
Well, so
we don't want to be too specific because you have a specific.
Oh, you have a
specific
deal you want to talk
project?
about?
Yeah.
Sort of. I want to talk about it kind of conceptually though, just because like I think when I'm thinking about multifamily development, I know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at like price per door, and more so, I don't really care about price per door a ton on land, because your biggest thing is what can I rent per square foot, more than it is price per door on the land, because it doesn't fluctuate as much as what is my rent per square foot, right? Because if I get a piece of land and it's 10,000 per door versus 20,000 per door, but the 20,000 per door land is in a city where I can rent it at $250 a square foot versus a city where I can rent new construction at $2 a square foot, it's way different. I want the 20,000 a door, right? Like every time, because I need the higher rents, because there's so much more that goes into the building costs that getting the haircut on the front end on the dirt per door price is like great, awesome. I want the best deal I can get on the front end. But like, even if I get that, somebody could give me land in parts of Oregon that we couldn't build in because the rent per square foot on new construction is so low. And so that's how I think about when I'm looking for multifamily land. That's how I think about it, because that's how I have to think about it, because then I can run through deals way quicker.
And here's a really good example of that. So if you go to Portland, you go east of I-205, the only deals that apartments getting built is stuff that traded at $100 a square foot for land or less, and it's all done through LIHTC, low income housing.
Yeah.
The highest land sale in the core of Portland, which is being built now by an institutional developer, so sexy project, by the way, $200 per square foot for land. And so you have the nice areas trading at $200 a square foot, the not as good nice areas at $100 a square foot, because the intensity of the development is different. Who you're going towards on the back end on the rent is different, where you're getting your income stream. And so, and what I'm kind of getting at is your land value in a commercial structure typically is a less ratio than in a residential world.
Sure.
So like in the residential world, you can get 33%. So you can kind of pay 33% of the end value when the market's ripe for the dirt.
Yeah.
Ideally, you're 25 to 30. So, $200,000 lot, build a $700,000 home. That's kind of what the math did. And what we're seeing now is, how do you look at it as a price per unit in the single family world based on cottages or fourplexes? And that number is jumped. What people have been paying is jumped all over the board because there's no history to that.
Yeah.
So think of it this way. Those essential middle income lots that were purchased for development were based on market conditions that existed in 2020 and 2021. What's being purchased now is different. The people that bought in 2021 and are still buying now have a different lens on these types of deals.
Yeah.
Whereas people just coming in now don't necessarily have a relativity to it. So it's really hard to see. So here's a really good example is early on, a lot of developers are like, oh yeah, if it costs us $200 to build it and we can sell it for $400 or $500, we can pay $100,000 per unit for the dirt. But what you're seeing now is the last entitled project that I saw sold. An entitled project that I saw sold in a good part of town was like $82,000 a door, entitled. So what I'm doing now is trying to get it for $20,000 to $40,000 a door, so I can entitle it and have my entitled cost be $40,000 to $60,000 a door.
$60,000, yeah.
And then that puts us in a position where we can rent, build, and then our all-in costs are similar to the 1% rule. So that's how I'm figuring it out. But and again, I'm looking at it from the rent side.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm looking at there's a really good thread in our local Go Abundance time is because one of the guys who's now getting into ground up building, he's like, "Oh, I'm taking the risk out by doing ground up building and an instant equity." And I'm like, chime in. I'm like,
that's the opposite.
There's no thing as instant equity in land. There isn't equity until you're done. And then Gabriel Hamill chimed in and is like, well. Yeah, and then points out all the different risks. And then there was a really good quote from Sam Zell that essentially said, on ground up, 50% of your revenue should be able to come from the rents, 50% of the revenue comes from the equity creation. Very complicated statement to see that quote and see how you figure that out. But that's essentially what I've done, is the point where we used to underwrite land based on, well, we can build it, sell it. That was the strategy. That is as risky as it gets.
Yeah.
But if you can underwrite it to how we're underwriting now from a build to rent standpoint, we're just paying less. So it just puts us, so in previously we were paying more. There's no way, you can't rent it.
Do you think that's natural to the market cycle though?
A lot of
do you
it,
think
most
that's
of it,
like the reason your mindset changed was because it essentially had
I have
to
shock and trauma. Absolutely. So am I missing out on some good projects because they don't pencil the way I want them to pencil now? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's more of a internal decision to limit risk and pivot our company in this direction.
And you're only going to hit great projects.
Correct.
Like there's you've done.
There's
you
no
don't
reason to take on that level of
good
risk.
projects when you know you can do great ones.
Exactly.
And so you're kind of just holding out on it.
Yep. And so here's a really good example. I just had a call with another competitor. We're friends. I got a property in escrow, non-contingent earnest money because it was a great deal. And as I was doing research, I saw that he did the exact type of project not far away. So I called him to get tight site. So single family, 2 ADUs in the back, very tight site. So I wanted to get his feedback on that, and we got into a conversation of deal flow. So we're getting calls from realtors all the time. You're getting so much deal volume, you're telling, and what the conversation was, I'm sick of telling them the same thing. It's like they just don't listen.
Yeah.
Which is, vacant land doesn't work. You need we really want a residence.
Yeah.
If it's going to be vacant, it needs to be really cheap. The prices that you saw people buy at, those don't exist anymore. For example, we have one realtor who, he probably sold us 5 or 6 of our 12 to 15 projects. And he's continuing to sell us stuff. He's like trying to compare it to our old projects. And we're like, did you not learn any? We don't like our old projects. This one's really good. It's just like this one. I'm like, that took 2.5 years and we didn't make any money.
Yeah, I don't know if you know or not, but it's been a rough couple years, dude.
Yeah. So it's an interesting marketplace, and a lot of it is market conditions. So this is how builders think: is we have a brand new code, we build this unit type based on and so then everyone built the same type of units, so you get an oversaturation of that, not just because everyone built the same type of units, but because demand was low and was not buying, and you're getting an excess buildup of inventory. So what we've seen ultimately is certain product types work in certain price ranges in certain locations, and there are certain locations where things are flooded. And so, for example, in the building world, what really changes your value is it's your design, it's your site plan, it's the quality of construction. When there isn't a lot of options, when supply is not high and there's a limited amount of new construction and there's a limited amount of homes for sale, guess what? People go and visit your site physically, and then they see, feel, and touch.
Ooh.
Smell.
Yeah.
Your difference, your value proposition versus your competition's value proposition.
Yeah.
When supply stacks up and now you're overwhelmed from a paper standpoint on how much supply is out there, guess where you go first? The cheapest.
Yeah.
And then you're not seeing everything. And so you're not seeing the different value propositions. And so if you're in that $350 to $400 price range, you're competing with you may be detached.
Yeah.
but you're competing with a whole bunch of townhomes.
Yeah.
And then those buyers may not necessarily care about it in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're building what we're building more in the $500,000 price range in the premium locations, well, that buyer isn't looking at the 350 to 400. So that stuff doesn't affect our really good locations.
Yeah.
One lesson that we learned is we took our fourplex that we sold for $500,000 a unit on 44th and Fremont, and we paid $489 for that dirt. $489 for that dirt. Took the same plan, built it on in a less desirable area. We paid $250 for that dirt. We sold those at an average of less than $400,000. $100,000 difference per unit, $400,000 difference in total revenue.
Yeah.
Only a $200,000 difference in price and land.
Yeah. Not good.
No good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you
make
want to
money on
base
that.
it on that back end revenue.
that's-
Everything's always based on that back end revenue, whether it's in rental income or sales income.
That was where I wanted to go with it, because that's my fear about building townhomes or condos in a market that's not like Portland. So I think you need the competition that Portland has, because when I think of like, okay, who has the most expensive condos on the planet? New York City. Why does New York City or San Francisco, or why do those places have the most expensive condos? And the biggest reason is the portion of the value of the building to that is land, right? And so when you were saying in Portland, it's 33%, right? There's other places where it's 5% of the total value. Like you go to Texas, there's houses that you buy that it's 5%, right? Like the land is just take it. Who cares? We have so much. We have all the land in the world. And then you go to like a I think it's in Santa Barbara. The value of a home, if you buy just a single family residence in Santa Barbara, it's on average 80% of the value of the home is the land. And so it's like, and that's a $3 million house where $2.25 million of the house is just the land, right? And so when I'm thinking about, okay, I want to go build condos, the value of condos is I can break down that land price in a place where land is expensive. And so, and I might be totally wrong here. That's why we're doing this, is because I'm looking at condos in like a market that land might not be that hard to find, or like it's kind of hard to find, but like you could definitely, if there was a huge level of demand, then you could definitely find land, and you could definitely build single family homes. So in that kind of market, how do I even, like, why would I build condos? Can I? If there's like, okay, maybe the value prop is it's nice and it's downtown and you have the best view, even though it's a small place, like there's still a value prop there. But is there even a world where the juice is worth the squeeze when I could just go buy cheaper land?
Yeah,
like, on the
development isn't
edge?
made for every area.
Developing that maybe.
Yeah, and that's why. Why do you have so much vacant land that doesn't sell in Detroit, for example?
Yeah.
You just doesn't make sense to build it.
Yeah.
So if it costs you $200,000 to build the unit and it rents for $1,000,
Yeah.
even if you get the land for free, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
And so the land value is the plug value. The land value is the last thing that you factor into your stack of expenses. And so that is just changed based on everything else.
Because that's the only thing you can
Because that's the only thing that you can change. Right?
Yeah.
So now as interest costs get low,
Yeah.
the land plug value increases.
Yeah.
Because you still want to do a deal and you have competition that still wants to do a deal. And
Yeah.
if they can lower expenses in one, they can increase it in the other. So that's how land value fluctuates. And land value actually fluctuates faster than anything else.
Yeah. It's the first thing to
Significantly
change.
faster.
Are you
Yeah.
thinking of building condos and townhomes to sell?
I'm thinking of looking at it the way that he's looking at it, where, okay, if I can do build for rent, because build for rent is actually huge, even in markets where land is inexpensive. And so there's people that are doing build for rent in those markets because they can pencil it at scale, where somebody that's trying to enter a single family home wouldn't be able to afford it. They can build it at scale and then rent it out. Still looks good on paper. And so I want to make sure that yes and no is the answer
You
to that
want
question.
multiple exit
I want to make sure
strategies.
that I don't have to exit. And so if I can say, okay, we can hold this if we have to, because it makes sense as a hold. But then shoot, like if we get 2 years down the road and the sale looks great, then let's sell them. Like I don't
I don't like the idea of build to sell.
No, I don't either. No, I
It
don't.
seems like a lot of work, and then you cut it off. It's like doing anything where
I'd
rather
like-
have the long term.
That's why there's the conversation, because I don't like the idea of build to sell, but I do like the idea of, okay, if we just can do this project and not really think about it, if the land's use makes the most sense as condos because the place where we're building doesn't need more apartments, or like we just don't want to have apartments there, whatever the answer may be, then can we just get a good deal on land, go build condos, potentially rent the condos, because it's a different type of rental. And that's why I asked
What is
Gabe
the
about
difference between like an apartment complex and a condo? Like,
Yeah, it's a good question because condoship is just a form of ownership.
yeah.
but like it's basically an apartment complex that you.
Condo can be anything.
Condo-
A
Yeah.
condo can be anything.
Yes.
A
That's
condo
what
it can be anything. A condo is a nonprofit organization. It's an LLC that you form that then owns the land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the condo owns the land and then enforces the structure of that community. And then you have the individual owners that have common elements and limited common elements, right? So like a detached cottage cluster, for example, is a really good scenario as a cottage cluster because it finances like a single family home. The HOA fees are like a single family home because they're standalone structures. You don't have reserves.
You
So
can
they're-
sell an individual cottage.
Yeah, so they're limited common elements. So
wow.
their yard is limited common elements.
the
Their
best
fence
part.
is limited common element. Their entire structure is limited common element. So the entire cost of everything is based on them. What's problem with an apartment building is most everything is common elements. The lobby's common elements. The roof, the siding, everything is
Your
common
HOA is
elements.
huge.
And so now you have these huge reserves. HOA payments for the reserve side of it. And so that's what's that's another thing we can talk about, a manipulation in the marketing on the for sale side, which is some developers are just taking the reserves out of their condo.
Sure.
And so people who are buying them 10 years down the road are going to have a huge financial issue event.
And they don't
Yeah.
know.
Because they don't know, because
Yeah.
they're uneducated, and this is one way to then to sell into that marketplace, or doing a middle housing land division on something like that. So that's a sidetrack. But a
Yeah.
condo, anything can be condoized.
Well, that's a great idea.
Fourplex, a house in a
to
garage.
take the reserves out.
Yeah.
Just as a joke. I hadn't thought of that. Good call.
So now you look into strategy, right? So the only reason, so there's some projects that we're condoizing, and then there's some that we're not. And the reason being is, well, what's the strategy? So the nice thing about a condo is and cottages and condo or middle housing together is you can sell some and you can retain some. If you build an apartment complex and you want to sell it, you have to sell the entire thing.
Yeah.
If you want to condo convert it, you can sell pieces, but now you got the complications of an apartment complex. And then think of it from a builder developer standpoint. So your risk comes from litigation.
Yeah.
The potential to litigation. We've seen what that's like. Well, if you have a 4-unit detached condo HOA that you're building and you build 50 of those, so you've got 200 units dispersed against a bunch of small little HOAs, your liability for suit is significantly less than doing a 200-unit apartment complex.
Yeah.
Why?
Because the way litigation happens is attorneys come and convince the HOA that they need the board, that they need to represent the HOA well and sue the lender. Well, attorneys only, or sue the builder. Attorneys only going to do that if you
there's
have a big enough magnet.
payday. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not typically possible. Plus a detached structure versus an attached structure. So condo can come in any types of form.
Clarify on detached versus attached, because your HOA is so much lower. Is that what you're getting at? And so on
And your
something that's
liability,
detached,
right? So your
liability is way
construction
lower because
defect-
the individual takes on the liability,
Yeah.
as opposed to, hey, we thought we were getting into like
Right, so
a good thing.
You have a
with
huge
the
apartment building and the siding fails in one section. You're doing
Yeah.
the entire building because it's an envelope lawsuit.
Yeah.
In a detached structure, one unit's bad,
One
and it's
guy
that
sues
unit owner's issue.
Yeah.
And they may or may not have a warranty.
Yeah.
But it doesn't involve everyone else in the HOA.
Yeah. You're solving one problem as opposed
So
to
why
200
do
problems.
you want to do condos rather than apartments?
I think it's a way to increase revenue for us.
If
And
you're gonna,
so the idea behind it being, okay, if we already think we're gonna do a build to sell project, I think there are opportunities where a condo build to sell potentially nets you more than
Just higher
just
price
an
per
apartment
unit.
complex. Yeah,
Similar cost?
potentially. I mean,
Well,
I
it's going
think
to be
you-
higher cost because of all but like how much higher cost is it if you're going to do, and do you have to design it way different now doing condos?
You don't
and
have to
apartments?
design it way different, but I think that like to to his point, you can make it whatever you want. And so you're looking at the specific market and saying, okay, can it bear a premium type unit? Can it, like, what size of units does it need? Because I can go out and build 100 3-bedroom condos. Doesn't mean I should, right? And so with apartments, like, we never want to build 100 3-bedroom units, but maybe condos, it makes sense. Like, maybe you want to build bigger units for the condos and you want to build the premium units and you're putting premium finishes on it, or at least some of them, because you want to sell those to people who are going to pay another $100,000, as opposed to apartments. Like, you're doing the standard base. I want this to be gray. I want this to be white. Like, these are the finishes. These are the cabinets we're using, because it's just a rental, right? And so on the condo piece of it, we get the design side where we can say, okay, like, putting an extra $10,000 into each unit to make an extra 30 actually makes sense. Whereas on apartments, it might not. And so if we're planning to build to sell, that's the biggest thing is, okay, we can increase revenue with, like, a specific piece of land or size of project because we on the front end, like, knew that the market could bear it. I don't think it's super easy to do in most markets. Like, and that was kind of part of the conversation. I'm not stoked on them, is to clarify here either.
Well,
Sounds like a waste of time.
I don't think
anyone should be doing an apartment condo. Like, the only reason we're doing condos is so we can separate ownership and sell it. But the way that we're developing it is we don't take on the risk of the condo because they're detached structures. And condoizing then increases your property taxes and your property insurance. And so it's not a great way to hold. So the only reason we do it is so we can sell some units to reduce basis in what we hold. So the actual expenses of those units will be more, but because we reduce our debt, that's what creates cash flow. If you do that in a big attached structure, you bring on all the liability.
Yeah.
Like, you're not detached from that. It doesn't make any sense. You're paying more per unit on a lot of your expenses just to sell some of the units, but you're still stuck to all the liability.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that is just
Never
off limits.
Okay.
Not never, but right now, there's low hanging fruit. Don't swim upstream.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That was, I didn't, first, it didn't pass the sniff test for me, but I didn't, like, have a.
The other part is lending's significantly different on an apartment condo conversion versus a non-apartment condo conversion. So for example, our detached stuff, they just finance like single family homes. They don't care about the HOA. It's not underwritten like a HOA. And then you can still down the road get it to an FHA approved condo development once you get enough units sold. So we had a 3-unit. And before we were retaining 1 unit, we built 2. We had an FHA buyer that just wanted to buy one of those 2 units, and they couldn't because they couldn't get an FHA loan. Once we closed on one, we were able to go back to that FHA buyer. They could buy the next one. And so there's a way of now, so if we're kind of cognizant as we're building these units out. So for example, we bought a unit called 1 and 5, one existing home. We're going to build 5. And then we converted it to we're going to build 6. And then, instead of building 6 of kind of the same plan, we're building 3 different plans, 2 of each. And it's 4 2-stories and then 2 2.5 stories. A mix of, we got some 2-bedroom 2.5 bath. We have some 3-bedroom 2 bath. We have some 3-bedroom 2.5 bath. And even the 3-bedroom 2.5 has like a flex space. So we're offering different price ranges, different sizes, and different amenities. And then we're selling the existing. That one's going away. Now we have 6 that we need to sell a couple just to reduce our basis. We have different units that we can sell that brings in a different net sheet. And so now we can create a strategy of, which ones are we going to hold? Which ones are we going to sell?
Yeah.
And then once we sell that 3rd unit or that 4th unit, now it's FHA approvable. Now our values go up, right? And so the ones that we hold and we retain, once we sell enough, the value goes up on those because the leverage for a retail buyer goes up. And so you can build out these phases of value by strategizing it in this way.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about doing this just because this fell in your lap? Or
No.
we don't have a shortage of deals or anything. Like, I don't see the purpose to do something new.
I think that deals have kind of fallen in our lap. I also think that Mark likes it from a revenue perspective. Because we make revenue in 10 different ways on it if we do this specifically. And so I think that's his idea.
It's part of an existing piece that you're trying to buy, right?
It's part of a set of deals that we're trying to buy right now.
Okay.
And so the idea being, okay, on these 3 projects, because in Mark's mind, on construction specifically, we don't get to hold all of them. And his cadence has kind of been, okay, we build 3, sell 1, build 3, sell 1, build 3, sell 1. And I mean, ideally, you keep holding more and more and more. But when you're doing it as your active income as well, then I mean, sometimes you just got to get out. Yeah. And so he's sold projects that I'm sure he regrets, quote unquote, selling. But if he went back, he'd do it again. Because I mean, it just made sense at the time. And so if you're already intending to build 3 projects or 4 projects and sell 1 out of every 3 or 4, then it's like, okay, I know that build to sell is my model already. So how do I maximize the profit on the sale? Yeah. Like that's
instead of building an apartment building, build condos.
Yeah, instead of building an apartment building, because apartment building is okay, all I want to do with this is rent it. That's all it's ever going to be good for, is I'm going to rent this out. It is purely an investment. Whereas condos, it's like, okay, no, it was made as build to sell. That's why we get a higher margin on it, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's the whole point. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, nobody would do it. If you could just build apartments and sell apartments, apartments are easier, right? You would never condo anything. And so it's like, okay, clearly there's a greater margin in some markets on condos or townhomes or cottage clusters or whatever.
Absolutely.
It is. Yeah. And so that's my next one too, is like if you have a place that maybe does need market rate housing, is there appeal to attached townhomes that are like slightly nicer, but you can build them a little bit cheaper but they are attached? And so maybe that's kind of not your favorite thing. I don't know. I like townhomes because of density, and it's obviously a better project than apartments. Like it's not flats. Like what? Obviously, townhome you own everything above and below you, and so you don't have anybody walking above you. People like townhomes way more, right? Like, and so if you have a market where land is, not super expensive, but it's also like maybe doesn't make a ton of sense to go and build 8,000 or 5,000 square foot lots, 8,000 square foot lots, but you can go in with townhomes and have a bunch of 2,000 square foot lots and build a cheaper product for a market that maybe doesn't have the highest median income. And so it makes sense to go in and make hey, this is a $325,000 townhome. Right, like that type of product.
So that's where you understand the demographics and the filtering of income over housing units. To close the loop on Mark, inherently in why he wants the build to sell, build 3, sell 1. Inherently, ground up and huge value add projects have the worst return on equity because they are the highest risk projects. So you create the most equity, which sets you up for the worst return on equity
because it's just stuck there.
Correct. Yeah. And so selling them is a way to build your portfolio because it puts your equity back into the portfolio. Yeah. And so that makes complete sense on why he wants to do that. All for that. Now, it's a hard market to build apartments and sell an apartment complex into, but I don't know that condo converting is the way to solve that problem.
I don't either.
Yeah. So just to close that off. Now, the townhomes. So now filtering income over your housing supply. And that's what you need to understand is the reason the condo development pipeline was so shitty, pardon my French, so bad for us is because financing changed. And so the income demographics for what we're trying to sell into changed. If our payments were based on 5.5% interest rates, there would be significantly more demand. And so you have to look at, well, what price ranges are you delivering in and what your number of households in the income ranges. So one of the best way to look at, like you look at, well, median income is X and median price is Y. Well, that doesn't break it into submarkets or segments. And so I want to look at, well, if I'm going to build this townhome and it's going to sell for just easy math, $500,000, and in our market, people are paying 5 times what their yearly income is. Okay, so I'm looking at the $100,000 per year household. Okay, how many households in that marketplace have $100,000 per year of income? And then you can back into, is there enough demand to put this supply into the market to absorb it?
At that, so you're looking at that on projects in specific areas. You're saying how many people make 100K to 125K?
If you're doing a more like a bigger product dump, that's kind of how you're going to look at it. Is if you're doing a smaller product dump, you don't need to get that granular because you're looking at the marketplace and what's happening there. But essentially what changed when the interest rates went up say we were targeting that 100% AMI market segment. But once debt costs went up, now we needed the 120 to the 130% AMA market segment. Well, there just aren't as many households in that income range. And then the people that are in that income range, as supply and inventory increase, they get more and more and more options. And so now you're competing with that aspect as well. And so understand what to deliver. So one of the problems that we're seeing in Portland and why builders are really avoiding some areas is you had so many of these builders that built the same unit. You have detached and attached. So zip codes like 97206, 97203, 97217. So many units, and they're all 350 to 400, and it's not great construction. It's not great site planning.
I want to sell you my white sloped roof townhome.
And so why do you go, you like as a builder, oh, I'm not going to go do that. I need to go find something else.
Yeah.
Now, that will change once demand, effective purchasing power increases, and that supply, right? So now builders aren't building as much. So we were turning the spigot on the supply side while it was drying up on the demand side.
Yeah.
Well, demand's still there, and so that supply is getting absorbed, and at some point the demand is going to outpace the supply, and so we're going to turn the supply side back on. And so that's why I love the idea of build for rent, is because you've turned on the future supply without having to buy something and develop to sell it. You've built it, you've created an inventory, and it's future product you can sell when the marketplace makes sense. And you can get it at a basis today where if you can do an 8-unit project, you can sell 3, maybe 4 of them, and then hold 4 or 5. That's building your portfolio for future success.
No, I like that. So what's your favorite build for rent product? Cottages, townhomes?
Well, a cottage with an existing home on it, so
Yeah.
your land per unit gets as low as possible.
Yeah, zero. Can be close to zero.
Can be as close to zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything I can get free dirt with. So, for example, the property I just got in escrow, non-contingent offer. So,
Did you put that one under escrow contract in Salem with the old guy?
it is. We are actually in escrow, but he doesn't have marketable title.
Oh, because he bought it on contract or what?
No, because he's a 90-year-old doing his own paperwork, and he didn't record so he sold it on a land sales contract, the default. He didn't record the default correctly.
Oh, so there's still a memorandum against it then? So he sold it, they defaulted, and he didn't correct that?
He hasn't, from a title
So he'll be
standpoint.
fine.
Yeah, he just needs to get his doc. But he's a 90-year-old dude, so getting paperwork done is not the easiest thing to get done. It's like handwritten. Yeah. So escrow's opened. I haven't delivered earnest money because earnest money is supposed to be non-refundable, and he doesn't have marketable title, so I don't want to deliver that.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
And I'm not too worried about it. But then it also gives me some time to do some due diligence. I also found out, like, you need to do due diligence. You know,
Yes, correct.
The setbacks are a little bit more in Salem than they are in Portland. Like, so when I got
this
in,
is the first Salem project
They're
you'll
way
be
more.
doing.
yeah. So when I kind of got into it, I'm really having, okay, well, we can't use this unit size. We need to use this unit size. And so I've got like 6 different site plans that I had created by my drafter. So now I can go down to the city to get their kind of opinion on these 6 different site plans so I can have a better idea of what I'm going to do.
So are you using your same team to build these, or do you have to go get new contractors?
Yeah, I'll create a new team. Yeah, and that was the beauty of hiring an in-house project manager is he comes with a Rolodex of contractors. And so he has contractors in the Salem market. So we don't have to solve that part of the problem. The new construction side would come a while down the road, and I'm doing, entitling some in-house stuff that I want to eventually build in-house and not do under partnership. Because going to your question, you build different types of units for different types of locations. And so everything that I'm doing from a partnership standpoint with my builder partner are the best locations, the best units, the highest quality. But I'm entitling some stuff in some neighborhoods that don't fit that product type. So I'm not going to bring that partnership into these other market segments. I'm just entitling them. I'm getting the design done. And then we can figure out how we're going to build it or who's going to build it later down the road. So it's creating entitled inventory that then allows me to choose how we're going to do that. I can't remember what the question was.
He's
No,
asked
I was
about
just
what your
talking
favorite
about-
unit type
yeah.
is to
So,
build.
yeah.
And
And I
that's
mean,
a loaded question.
it's
'cause It's
super
just like,
loaded.
what's your favorite
Yeah.
deal to do?
No,
They're all
I mean
different.
it's not even that it's super loaded because you answered it the right way. It's like, dude, it doesn't. It's I don't.
It depends.
My favorite unit type in Pennsylvania is not the same as my favorite unit type in Portland or Oregon City. Or
Yeah, well,
Sweet
I'd say
Home.
this until we started doing our ADU is awesome. Our 4-unit townhome with all corny units is sexy. I actually what's favorite is changing. So like the 6 units, we're creating 6 new floor plans now, and so that's the fun process. Is well, how do you modify it? And how do you change it? And how do you tweak it?
So better question. Another addition to that, if you were saying, I'm starting out in Salem and I want to do my first development, but also I can just go buy a single family home. What's your lot size, home size? Like what are you looking for if you're going to do your first kind of development project? Like you want to go build cottages? Do you want to build what would
Yeah.
you do right now to like minimize risk? Get land for free type thing. Like what's
this is a good question.
What's the best
Actually, it
mix?
takes us down a road I wanted to go down, which is land value is it's a byproduct of supply and demand. Well, supply is limited from a creation standpoint. So what limits supply is regulation, right? So government regulation and market conditions are really what affects supply and demand and the land side of it. And so the beautiful thing about Salem is it's part of a urban growth boundary. So that's what makes Oregon beautiful is we have our urban growth boundary, which limits the amount of land, which then makes our land value worth more. And so, okay, take that thought process to Salem. It's inside the urban growth boundary. So I want to look at where is it inside of the urban growth boundary? Are we next to downtown Salem where the urban growth boundary is miles away? Or are we off Cordon Road where we're on the urban growth boundary?
We are the boundary.
We are the boundary.
Yeah.
And so what I also understand is, okay, if we have government regulation keeping our land value high, I want to buy property with land. So I want something with expandability. And so that doesn't mean a big lot in a zoning like a 20,000 square foot lot where the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the 10,000 square foot lot where the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet or 3,000 square feet. And I want an existing structure off to the side. I don't want the existing structure in the middle. And so I'm looking for these elements that allow, hey, there's value now because there's a structure. There's value in the future because there's dirt. And can I get a price that allows me to buy that structure in the financial vacuum to buy just that structure and then have the future potential of the land.
Yeah.
So that's what I personally want to look for because I am an appraiser and I think like a developer. That's what I want. Now, to answer your question of do you do a single family? I think that comes down to intrinsically what value do you have and what are your skill sets and your resources. When it comes down to choosing a property or a product type, you need to understand the city's development code. Development cycles. So I love 102nd Avenue in Portland because it has EXD zoning. It has the most intense zoning. It has downtown zoning 5 miles from downtown. It's kind of a war zone right now. It's close to Park Rows. There's a lot of crime. You can only do low-income housing projects. But if I can get a 20,000 square foot lot for a house that I can rent and hold, eventually that's where progress goes. And if you look at, okay, well, the Max goes out there and there's Max stops and they've put a lot of energy into between 102nd and 115th on Holsey. And then you look at all the government public-private partnerships that are happening. So you can look at this part of town and say it isn't great right now. But this is where public capital is going. Private capital loves to partner with public capital. And so eventually this is what's going to get there. So, but you then need to understand, well, what are the cycles? When is this a 3 cycle before we develop that? Or is this a 1? And then you need to say, well, if I'm going to buy this based on that, I need to be able to hold it for that period of time. So here's a really good example. We bought a triplex in Oregon City, right next to where the riverfront. So anyone that knows Oregon City, we have this huge riverfront. It's the 3rd largest waterfall. Anyways, a paper mill, lots of contamination.
Trevor loves that waterfall.
Oregon City waterfalls.
Yes,
sick.
it is sick. It is sick. And so and it went into foreclosure. So the paper mill was employee owned. It went into foreclosure, and all of this, and we knew it was going to get sold, and you knew it was going to get redeveloped. And so we bought this triplex, which is on the same street that there's a highway that dissects this part of town from downtown, and then there's a cliff up above it. So we bought a triplex on the cliff up above it on the same street that the pedestrian bridge goes over the freeway down into this development.
Yeah.
And so, oh man, this is gonna be amazing. Well, we bought it 11 years ago. And guess what?
They've been talking about developing that for that long.
Yeah, and they haven't done anything.
Dude,
And
it's
so
gonna be sick though.
it will
once
be
they
sick.
do.
It will be sick. But so understanding that when we bought it, we bought it right, and 10-year financing on it that we've extended to 11. It's on the market now to sell. But if that project were done, what would that triplex be worth?
Yeah.
It's not done, so it doesn't have that kind of appeal. So understand how long does it take for these cycles to turn, and then understand, well, where are you in the path of progress, and understand, well, if this area is going to be developed first, then that area is a cycle behind this area. And so start thinking from an urban planner. And so that's where the comprehensive plan is really a good thing to understand, because the comprehensive plan, the city's telling you what they want you to do. That's the beauty of being a developer or an investor or someone with capital, is you go to the right sources and they tell you, we really want you to invest over here. And we're telling you we want you to invest over here because if you invest over here, we're going to give you this, and we're going to give you this, and we're going to give you this. So like the city of Portland, just no SDC fees if you convert an office building to residential, because they want you to convert office building to residential.
Do those people that plan to use those dollars meet with investors to see how?
No, you have to go in and ask as an investor, right? Like they don't tell you, other than just kind of, hey, we passed this bill, but to
Shouldn't they meet with investors and developers to understand?
Well,
what
they
the
will at
best
the
use
macro
of-
level. We're
Yeah.
talking for people like us. You have to go ask. You go, unless you're already in that arena, they're not coming to you to tell you about that. But one of the coolest things about TriMet and Portland, Multnomah County creating all this affordable housing is they created a huge $750 million for an affordable housing fund, but they didn't realize that in our state constitution, the state can't they can't partner, so they can't do debt. And they couldn't part. So we have this state constitutional law that said that $750 million that you raised based on leveraging to 70% to build 2,000 units, well, you can't leverage it by law. So you have to. So they changed the constitution to allow them to use that capital to partner with private investors.
Oh, wow.
So the private investors use the leverage, and then they get the grant money on top. And so one of the coolest things about that is they just brought in, they probably tripled the amount of low-income housing developers in the city by increasing their capital stack. And the nice thing is that was kind of it wasn't the first money in, but it was the cleanest money in. And so as long as you could figure out the rest of that capital stack, you knew you'd have this windfall that would make everything work out. So that's kind of an interesting way of how public capital partnering with private then builds out this low income housing product.
No, that's sick. No, I'm good on it. Yeah, that was, you kind of always go back to Portland because smaller cities have less diversity in their housing. You kind of get a short list of types. And so when you're asking about what would you do if you were investing in a smaller market, it's like, I'd probably do single family housing or 3-story walk-up apartments.
Because that's what the incomes can handle.
Yeah.
And that's just filtering income over housing styles. So why do you have a bunch of mansions in San Francisco?
Got a lot of money.
Got a lot of IPOs down there.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. That was really just me going to lunch with Mike and questioning whether or not we should do build to sell. And I got my answer. I think we're going to do it.
No.
Townhomes.
No.
Build to rent townhomes.
Okay.
Potentially sell. Trevor's just negative. Trevor just wants to own everything, so he hates the idea of building something with the intention of selling it. Oh, I thought you were going to rebut. Anyways, hey, thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate you. Sorry that you didn't get to hear Gabe's wonderful voice today. We still get to hear it. Like and subscribe, I think. Can you like it? Rate us 5 stars. Rate us 5 stars and subscribe and turn on notifications. And we will see you shortly for an episode on Deal.